You're making your own rules, you're setting your own path, and you're setting an example for your kids of what is acceptable, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it. Hey mama, are you feeling lost in motherhood? Overwhelmed trying to do it all of the time? Well, I invite you to join me on this journey to find ourselves in motherhood again, to ditch the mom guilt and get that support from a mom friend that you've been looking for. I'm Jessa, a work-at-home mom of 3, and my mission is to help moms thrive instead of survive. And you're listening to Caught Up in Motherhood. If you've been following along on Instagram, you might have noticed that I've started posting about becoming an OBM, about motherhood and working from home, but we're taking it a step further. And we're not just talking about the mom side of things anymore. I'm going to start talking about the business side a little bit, specifically the OBM world, the online business management world, and PM or project management side of things too. But I'm going to try to keep it fun and interesting as well, because sometimes, I know for me too, sometimes the business stuff can get a little dry. We're going to keep it entertaining. We're going to keep it upbeat, and you're going to learn something at the same time as you get to hear, hopefully, sometimes funny or relatable stories as I share my own experiences in life, adventures, and things as they happen and as they go on. But today what we're going to talk about is, what is an OBM? How do you get started? What does that mean? And what does that look like for you? Now, everyone's journey is going to look a little bit different. For me, personally, I started as a virtual assistant, okay? And that was a great starting point, the great stepping stone for me to go from corporate straight into that virtual assistant role. I got my feet wet. I got to learn the systems. I got to understand this online space a little bit better because I came from corporate and I didn't fully understand what it meant to work remotely and to work online. And there's a million different kind of systems and platforms and things out there that you use that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know how it worked, right? Like, I just went out and I consumed things. I bought courses, bought products, participated in my favorite person's Instagram, followed along on their emails, but I never fully thought about the work that went into creating those email sequences, that went into creating those sales pages, and how they collected credit card information and all of the little pieces that go behind the scenes to make it run and make it work. So starting as a VA was really helpful because I got to learn some of those platforms and understand what was all behind the scenes of it. You know, and just like with any industry, if you've never worked in food, maybe you don't fully understand how the kitchen works. And if you haven't worked in retail, same thing, you don't understand how they stock the shelves and how they manage the day and product and inventory until you're in it. And it's like a whole new world that's just opened up to you. And you're like, oh, that's how they do. That's important. So you start to get a better picture of what it means to work in those different roles. So same concept, you got to start somewhere. And for me, I decided to start as that VA and learn what that looked like. By starting as that VA, I got to take the time to figure out the direction I wanted to go in, because you can specialize in different things. You can be a generalist when it comes to your virtual assistant business. You can specialize in social media and Pinterest, podcast management, social media, email marketing, copy, graphic design, all these different avenues that you can pick. And my background is in human resources and in management and people. So I learned about becoming a project manager and an OBM and decided that was the route I wanted to go. So very quickly, I started working towards those goals of becoming an OBM and a PM, and was able to take my business to that next level that I wanted to go in. And here's what happened. I got to take that VA business that was already giving me the freedom that I needed to be a stay-at-home mom, because I got to work the hours that I wanted to work. I got to pick when I worked. I got to go to those doctor's appointments, be present, have slow mornings, not have a commute in and out of an office and worry about snowstorms in Wisconsin. And I got to, work in my PJs if I wanted to. And it was great. And I got to have the kids right there under my feet half the time, or work at the island while they're doing this or whatever. But as time went on, I realized I wanted more. I could do more because of my background, because of my experience, and I was getting in the hang of things, right? I was getting a knack for what I was doing and how it worked. So fast forward, I became an OBM and project manager. And I'll explain the difference of those in a minute. And it allowed for even more freedom than the virtual assistant did. And how that worked was I was delegating, right? I was managing, I was leading, I was keeping the team organized, keeping them productive, moving them forward. And I wasn't so much doing the day-to-day operations, right? So I was telling the team, hey, this is the email sequence, this is the goal, this is the outcome, this is the due date. These are the graphics, like here's the information, here's all the pieces. Putting it together, like wrapping it up into a nice little package for them and putting it into like Asana or ClickUp or wherever, and then telling them go. And a lot of that I could do from my phone. So when I had like my second and I was nursing and sitting there, I didn't have to necessarily always nurse at like my desk. I could do it wherever I needed to. And I could have my phone out and I could have that PM system open and I could do updates in there. I could send Voxer messages. I could send Slack messages if that's what we used. And I could communicate with the team what was needed because my role was more of that delegation, more of that management of the team than the day-to-day operations of it. So I got to spend more time managing, leading, organizing in that way. And then when I did have nap time or the kids did go down at the end of the night, then I could sit down at the desk and I could review the team's work and I could provide feedback and notes and corrections and whatever needed to happen. But I was able to at least do a lot more around my schedule. So it was just this new level, right? This new level of freedom that came with becoming a PM or an OBM. Now, the difference here before we get too far between a project manager and an OBM, people are going to have different definitions of what these are. This is not a corporate space. Okay, so real quick, it's not a corporate space. It is not dictated or mandated by some group entity organization in that way. There are groups, but there's not this like government funded entity behind it to state this is the job description for this role. All right. So there's some flexibility, some freedom here. And people are going to agree and disagree with what I say a PM or an OBM is. So the biggest difference between a project manager and an OBM is what they're working on in regards to the period of time. Okay. So project manager comes on to work on a specific launch or product, course, workshop thing. All right. So something's going on. You have a new product you want to launch, a new course program you're going to roll out, and you bring in a project manager to manage the outcome of that event. Right. So they're project based and traditionally short term. So they could be a 1 month, a 3 month, 6 month, however long your launch sequence, launch program is going to be. Traditionally is how long that project manager is going to be in space. Now, if you have a project that is reoccurring, so let's say that you do a webinar every single month and you need someone just to manage that process every month and just like own it, take it, run with it. They know what they're doing, start to finish, they just run it. That's something the project manager could do. Now, that project manager could be the person, depending on the size of your team, who physically does all of the tasks and makes it go. But they could also be the leader, making sure that that is going and moving and the things are getting done and that your VA or your tech VA or your graphic designer or your copywriter is getting those things done specifically for that project, event, course, workshop thing that you're doing. Now, the OBM is a step above that if you're talking hierarchy here. And they manage the entirety of your business. So they are your right-hand person. You are the face, you're the content creator, you're there in the front of it, the face of the business. Your OBM is your behind the scenes. They make sure that the things work and that they happen. You as a business owner don't always need to know how it gets done, just that it gets done. I've had clients who've come to me and they're like, I just want to do this. I don't care how it happens. I just want it to work. These are the platforms I use. Can it happen? And then the OBM comes in and says, yes, it can. This is how we do it. This is who we need. And they make it happen, right? They manage the team. They manage the operations. They manage the budget. They manage the stats, the KPIs, all of those pieces behind the scenes to make things run and make things go so that you as a business owner can concentrate on content, on relationships with your clients and your customers. And you can do the things that make you happy, the things that you decided was why you started that business in the first place, right? You started this business because you wanted to serve people and you wanted to do a certain thing, not to be stuck trying to figure out how to make your website work or understand your email sequences to know how to do a certain email. And do you use a button or do you use a link? Should you put an emoji here? Should you put in a GIF? Should you what? What do you do? Long form, short form? Too many options, but you have to test it. You have to figure it out. So you have that OBM come in and they organize and they do that. They decide how you're going to do those like A/B testing with your email and they help guide your team through the whole process, the whole thing from the back end. And the more successful your OBM is going to be, the more successful you are as an OBM really comes down to the level of trust that that client has with you as the OBM to do the work, and then your confidence in being able to execute what needs to happen, right? You can know the systems and you can understand the platforms and how they work, and that's great. And you can learn a lot of that as being a VA. But what a lot of people are missing, that missing piece, is management. It's leadership. It's communication. It's knowing how to manage that team in a way that your team is happy and productive and producing the outputs that you're asking for without burnout, without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling like they're being taken advantage of or that they're just, a part of something small, like they're not important. And for a lot of us, that's a big reason why we left corporate, is we didn't feel like we were contributing in a way or appreciated or valued, right? And that is something that I love about working in this online space, is that we're in this for ourselves, for our own business, our own drive, and the value and the respect and just the community that is here in this online space is so much stronger than I've ever seen in a corporate world, because corporate is great, don't get me wrong, but it's so forced sometimes. I've seen a couple of memes where they like post a picture saying that they're having their annual pizza party because the employees aren't happy anymore, so just give them free pizza and they'll be happy. Right? And that doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. But working in this online space, there's so much more freedom because you get to set your hours. Yes, you have clients. Yes, they have needs. Yes, they need things from you and there are deadlines in place, but you get to decide whether or not you take on that client. You get to decide whether or not that due date is feasible for you. And you can say no and you can say yes. And you can decide if you're going to work in the evenings or during the day or during nap time, or you decided, you know what, I'm going to take this Wednesday off because I want to, because I want to go do XYZ, because whatever. And you can do it. There's no guilt. There are those days in corporate where my son would get sick or I would get sick or things would come up where I would have to sit there and think to myself, I really wish I could take off right now. Or do I have enough PTO to do this? And a lot of times it would cause so much anxiety around leaving for the day and deciding that I needed to leave to take off for work, or, the daycare called and said he's sick, I have to come get him. And then telling my boss, hey, my kid's sick, can I leave? That was a huge shift for me, going from corporate employee to employer and being my own boss, was asking permission. I don't have to ask permission anymore. I can just do it. My kid's sick, I'm not working. Or I'm working less. I'm working around his schedule, and I get to decide what that looks like for me. There's no corporate boss in here stating, well, where are your hours? Where's this? Where's that? Why isn't this done? What do you mean your husband can't take off work? Can't your mother-in-law watch the kids? What about so-and-so? Like, none of that happens. There's no push for that. And that anxiety that I would have and that guilt I would have because I was putting my family first, or I was putting those needs first over working, and how guilty they'd make you feel. Like, are you sure? Like, you really can't do this? Or you can't take it home with you. You can't do XYZ, or just the guilt of it. And then getting, for example, written up because how dare your child get sick? How dare you need to take a vacation day? And then getting written up for it, or pointing out just a bunch of BS. So working from home has been a huge transition in confidence and freedom. And for those of you that are a virtual assistant or are looking to become a virtual assistant and you're wondering, can I do this? And what's that next step? Or virtual assistants only make this much money, and they can make a good bit, okay? They make this much money, but I need to make this much more. Maybe that next step for you is an OBM. Maybe that next step for you is that project manager. There is so much customization when it comes to working in the online space where you decide what you do and how you do it. And we're going to talk more about that in future episodes. I'm just trying to give you an overview here of what this looks like. My main message here is flexibility and freedom and the ability to put your kids first without that mom guilt, without the shame, without people passing judgment. No, they're going to pass judgment. Without you caring about them passing judgment, because there comes a point where you don't care anymore. You're making your own rules, you're setting your own path, and you're setting an example for your kids of what is acceptable, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it. And I love the fact that I get to work from home and that I get to be around with my kids and I can decide whether or not we're going to make cookies after lunch one day, or if I'm going to work today at all, or if I'm going to work more today or more tomorrow, or what that looks like. I can decide to take a random day off if I want to. I can decide to get a new client and increase my income, or I can decide that I want to take the summer and work light and get rid of a client or two or not offer as much for the summer months if I want to. I'm in control. I set my hours, my availability, I set my rate and what I want to do and how I want to do it. And you can do that too. You can set those figures up. You can decide how you're going to operate and what this is going to look like. And you can be mom. You can be mom. You can decide that you're not working Mondays. You can decide that in the month of December, and I've talked on this before, that you're taking every Friday off because Fridays you're making cookies, you're wrapping presents, you're seeing Santa, you're going Christmas caroling, you're doing the fun activities that you want to do. And there's no guilt, there's no shame. There's balance, there's freedom, there's this ability to say, I did it. I made it to some degree. I made it to this next level of motherhood. That I can cuddle my kids and I don't miss these moments. I don't miss this life-changing events, the first walking, the first this, the first that. I'm here for it. But I'm also contributing financially. I'm also being challenged mentally. And I get to use that college degree, if that's what you did. I get to use those skills for something and I get to make something for myself. And I get to set an example for my kids that you can do this. And if you have those drivers and you want to do it and you want to be a virtual assistant or you are one and you want to go to that next level, you are ready to become a project manager or OBM, but you lack that confidence. Maybe you lack the leadership skills or you think you do and you don't know how to delegate. You don't know how to find that next level client. I invite you to click the link in the show notes and connect with me. Find me on Instagram at the Jessa and send me a DM, right? Reach out to me because I've started offering OBM coaching. And what I'm doing is I'm taking moms like you, whether you want to start a business from scratch or you're that virtual assistant and you're ready for that next level. And I'm teaching you the skills that you need to be an OBM, to be a project manager. Yes, we're going to go over the techie stuff, or I'm going to teach you all that. But my goal, my focus is I'm going to make you a leader. I'm going to teach you how to listen and hear what your team is saying. I'm going to teach you how to delegate and manage your team in a way that is productive as well as satisfying and just your team is happy and content. And it's not pulling teeth to get them to do things because you're going to develop this relationship with them that is so much deeper than corporate world. And we're going to create a sustainable life structure for you, a balance between motherhood and entrepreneurship. There's going to be growth in so many ways. It's not even funny. Like, I'm just thinking about the moms that could be more present, right? Like, there were days where I would cry on my way to work because I had to leave my son with someone else. I had to drop him off and let somebody else raise him and take care of him. And I couldn't do it because I had to go to that damn job. And it wasn't for me anymore. I couldn't keep doing it. Of having those 2 to 3 hours in the evening after work to spend with my kids, of not being able to be present and trying to get all of the things done in the 2 to 3 hours or in the weekend, and just being exhausted. And having to pack up the kids in the car early in the morning to get them to the babysitter, to the daycare, or wherever. And then get the report back that they didn't eat, they didn't nap, they're dirty, they're this, they're that. I couldn't do it anymore. And if you're in that space of, I can't do this anymore, I hear you. I get it. There can be so much more available to you. So much more ready to be grasped that you can do. Whether you become a virtual assistant or a project manager or an OBM or anything in between, because there is so much out there. There are so many options. It's finding the one that works for you and putting in the work and deciding, this is what I want, and go get it. So if you want to learn more about my OBM coaching program, hit the link below, get on my email list, get on my calendar, and let's talk. And I'll go over it in great detail more on what this looks like, what I have to offer, and how I can help you get that freedom of balance and guilt-free motherhood, and still bringing in an income, but bringing in an income around your schedule, around your availability. All right, mama, don't forget, you got this. And we'll talk on the next one. Hey, mama, thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope this episode alleviated some of those feelings of overwhelm and that you found connection on this journey in motherhood with me. If this episode resonated with you, can you leave a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode? That would mean the world to me. I'd also love to connect with you on Instagram, so send me a DM and let me know how motherhood is going for you. And remember, mama, you got this.